Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Ladies Tea, our second official episode. We are so stoked to be back. Tonight, we're joined by Turning Point contributor, my friend, you know her, you love her, Erin Elmore. Ladies, welcome to the show. Erin, this is like old hat for you. You know exactly what's happening here. Liz, there's been quite a bit to talk about lately with Joe Biden, with documents. We found more. This weekend, guess what? More documents, classified documents found at properties of Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden says we should all just calm on down. First of all, these documents, Erin, were locked in the garage. All right, so number one, they were locked in there. We should just relax about it. And according to all the media and the DOJ and everybody else involved, Joe Biden's cooperating. So this is not a big deal.
Right. So that to me is the funniest part. That's like saying, listen, guys, Jeffrey Dahmer did not commit any crimes. He cooperated.
Yeah, he was cooperating. It's fine.
The cooperation has nothing to do with the crime. Just because you cooperate afterwards doesn't negate your bad actions. But you know what else I think it would be really important to focus on? The Penn Biden Center. So he left office as the vice president. The Penn Biden Center didn't open until a year later. Where were those documents for a year before they were found in the Penn Biden Center? Yep. Where were they? We don't know that either. And no one's really addressing that. Moreover, I think that our Republican House should also ask, why when the Penn Biden Center opened, did we get $53 million in donations from the Chinese Communist Party? No one's really talking about that because we have the whole document fiasco from everything else. So I think there are so many layers to this disgusting cake that we really need to go through, because I think it's only going to continue to get worse. And I think we really do need to hold him accountable. But we know different treatment when you're a Democrat than if you're a Republican.
Yeah, no, obviously, we all know how that game is played. Cozy and comfy inside, doesn't it? I also thought the timing of Ron Klain, Biden's chief of staff, stepping down was interesting. Now, so many people are like, don't read into it. There's nothing to read into here. But I mean, you can't dismiss that. You know, I get it. It's a high stress job. It's a high stress environment to work in the White House. But gosh, if you're Joe Biden and your chief of staff comes to you in the midst of probably the biggest scandal of your presidency thus far, I mean, all the rest have totally been ignored. Don't you think, Erin, you might say to this guy, could you just give me like a couple of weeks before you announce this? I don't know. Do you make anything of the timing of that?
I mean, it certainly is suspicious. It looks like something is going on and he didn't want to be involved in it. And I also think it's very suspicious that the government knew that these documents were found before the midterms. And right. We didn't hear about it until January. I think that they didn't want to have the red wave and wanted to do anything they could to protect their standing and just sort of kept it from us. And that also shows you that something is nefarious. But also a lot of the mainstream media of saying, oh, this is their way to take Biden out. I think it's far more sinister. What they're trying to do is go through a sort of process to create precedent to take Donald Trump out. So they're going to say, we did X, we did Y, and we did Z. But Donald Trump did X, Y, and Z wrong. We're going by the Biden standard. And by the Biden standard, he's completely clear. But of course, President Trump isn't. And it's so ironic, given that the president, Donald Trump, had the ability to declassify documents. Right. And Joe Biden, as the vice president, does not have the ability to declassify documents. So any way you look at the situation from an objective level, you can see that Joe Biden is far more in the wrong than anyone. And Donald Trump clearly is being, sort of air quotes framed. But no. Again, when you're Democrats, you can do whatever you want.
No, well, we know that to be true. Here's a really fun fact, by the way. Whenever Jimmy Carter was trying to get his CIA director, passed through the Senate for confirmation, guess who blocked his nominee for CIA director, Joe Biden? This is going to say this is completely about control. Yeah, there is no data. This isn't about COVID. There's no data to support that COVID is any, running more rampant than it was 6 months ago, 8 months ago. There's no data or science behind this, but we already know they can create their own science. But from a legal perspective, the judge in Florida ruled that they don't have the ability. The CDC does not have the legal authority to basically write legislation.
They are not the House. They are not the Senate. And the Supreme Court actually ruled on a different case that was involving the EPA that was trying to basically enact legislation. They said, you cannot do this. It is not within your power to do so. So now it's on appeal in the 11th Circuit. So Florida is part of the 11th Circuit. And there's a 3-judge panel as of right now. I think one is a Trump appointee, one is an Obama appointee, and I believe the other one is a Clinton appointee. So we don't know how it's going to turn out. A lot of the Clinton appointees have ruled sort of in a way that would, on a more conservative front, because Bill Clinton was a hard-on crime guy. So I think the judges that he appointed aren't these far-left social justice warriors.
Bill Clinton these days would probably have been considered a conservative.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you, right? Like, that's how far off the rails the Democrats have gone, is if you, I mean, you're right. He cared about actually cracking down on crime.
Oh, yeah, he was really hard on crime. Actually, Bill Clinton incarcerated more African-American men than any president in the history of our country.
That's right.
So, but at any rate, we have to see what this 3-judge panel says in the 11th Circuit. My point is that Joe Biden or any 3-letter agency just can't be like, masks are back, because it's still in court right now. And I hope that this panel does say that this is unconstitutional, because on its face, it is unconstitutional. Now, if you want to have the House write some legislation and approve it by the Senate to get masks, that could be different, but we don't see that happening.
I mean, it is this mask stuff. I got to tell you, nothing is worse. We all remember it wasn't so long ago where you had to wear these masks. And I remember sitting on airplanes and just thinking how dumb we all must look to, if you could have fast forwarded time and seen how crazy things would get, 5 years ago, to think about anybody wearing a mask, you would have looked at one person getting on a plane wearing a mask like, oh, that person's a little bit strange. Then you look around at the rules on the airplanes, right? Whenever you're traveling, you were allowed to eat food and drink something, right? And take your mask off, but then you had to put it back on. I'm sorry. What are we talking about? Erin, like you said, there's zero scientific backing on this. This is insanity. And the fact that they think we're going to go back there is crazy.
Yeah. I was on a plane
It's also
recently.
it's not just unscientific. It can be dangerous. I was pregnant in 2020 during the height of all the COVID hysteria.
Oh, God
and I remember flying with a mask, and I had to take an oxygen saturation finger monitor with me because it caused me. I mean, I had severe nausea and morning sickness, and it made me sick to where.
So you can't perform as well. It cognitively impairs your judgment. They did a whole series of studies and people were playing chess. And basically what happened is those that were wearing masks over time, they got worse and worse scores. Some of it is because it's a distraction, but probably it has to do with the amount of oxygen getting to your brain. I don't know. Yeah, obviously, we have a lot of reasons not to wear them. And yet here we are.
I was on a plane next to a guy doing the one bite, the mask up, the one bite. The mask up, one bite. And then he took the mask off. Inside of the mask, laid it down on the tray table, which is probably the dirtiest. Like, that's probably like licking.
That's one of the dirtiest. Yeah, if I'm ever on a plane with my kids and they're eating a snack and it even touches, there is not a 5-second rule on those airplane, little things. What's it called? Seat back. Forget it. That is it. We're not eating anything off of those. Those are disgusting.
I had to say something. I was like, excuse me,
Did you say
sir.
something?
I like, how you're like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to exercise self-control today. I'm not going to say a word. I just tapped him and I said, sir, your mask is face down on the tray table. And I'm pretty certain that's a very, very dirty surface. So, and then he just goes, he picks it up, looks at it and says, oh, and puts it back on.
Oh, I feel so sad for him. I mean, like, not for nothing.
That's so disgusting, but so funny.
People can do. I just don't understand.
I mean,
yeah,
that's the facts, go ahead, Liz.
As the mom of a young child, when I dug into the RSV stuff,
because the new food pyramid, by the way, have you guys seen this? I know we didn't I didn't even say that we wanted to talk about this today. I was talking to my mom earlier and she was like, have you seen the new food pyramid? The new food pyramid at the top of it, instead of like fruits and vegetables, things that you should put in your body, apparently it's like cereals and sugary cereals and snacks like that. And I guess the idea behind it is that it's because things are so expensive right now. People can't afford the things they're supposed to buy. Well, that's not what we need. You need to tell people what they really are supposed to be putting in their body But to your point, Liz, it's all garbage. All the people who are making those decisions, and by the way, the first food pyramid apparently was started by the people who make cereal. I forget whatever company. Yeah. So like they had a vested interest in telling people, yeah, you should eat like sugary cereals. It's great for you. But I saw some study recently where they said like Lucky Charms are better to eat than eggs. What are you kidding me?
Because eggs are like $9.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's probably more affordable to eat, but actually physically better for you. I'll never buy it. All the people who are making these decisions and putting out all of this information by which we should all live our lives, it is the swamp. You're right. You're exactly right. And it's really scary because we're supposed to be able to trust these agencies and these people, and they're supposed to be giving us real information and not information that's going to benefit somebody's bottom line, or I don't know. It's really crazy stuff. All I know is during COVID, I made sure that my kids did not have a mask on, that I exposed them to as much as I possibly could. I knew they were not at risk from dying from COVID. And you should have seen when I lived in New York, the parents, when I would take them to a playground, outdoors, mind you, unmasked, who would grab their kids up and run out of a playground because I showed up with 2 kids without masks on, although maybe they knew who I was. I don't really know. It could have gone either way on that. And speaking of New York, we'll transition very lovely in a lovely way to Hilaria Baldwin. Hilaria, how do we say her name?
Hilaria.
Hilaria.
All right.
But you know her real name is Hillary from Boston.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is her real name Hillary? Interesting.
Yes.
All right.
Her real legal name is Hillary, yeah.
So for anyone who hasn't seen, there's a video. I just tell you to Google it. Just look it up. Hillary Baldwin, Alec Baldwin's wife, outside of their apartment talking to paparazzi. And I get it. She was out there telling them that she wanted them to leave her children alone as they were going to school. Erin, you just said it. She's from Boston. But if you watch this video, it sounds like she has a Spanish accent of some variety. And I think we could all also go back and look at a Today Show appearance where she acted as though she was of a different original language, like her native language was not English. And she says, how do you call this cucumber? Like, right? Like, what are we doing? What's happening with Hilaria Baldwin, do you think, Erin? I'm confused.
She's like the Rachel Dolezal of celebrity wives, you know? So she tried to spin it when she first became public with Alec Baldwin, that she's from Spain. And we now know her name is Hillary from Boston, as indicated. Her parents, like, sometimes, like, basically had a timeshare in Spain, if they call it that over there. But it wasn't like she grew up there, going there all the time. And this whole Spanish accent thing is a complete and utter farce, because there were some yoga videos, because she is a yoga teacher, that came out of her teaching. I don't know what the year was. Again, we can look it up on Google, but I don't use Google. I use DuckDuckGo because it's not corrupted by the liberals. At any rate, I digress. There are these videos of her teaching yoga, and she did not have a Spanish accent in the least. She actually sounded like she had a little bit of a Boston accent.
Oh my God.
I'm not that great at accents. Maybe that was a Philly accent, but I don't know.
Well, look, here, you know what? I can see, Liz, if there are people who live in a certain area for a number of years, you do kind of pick up on, the dialect of the area.
Her husband is in a lot of hot water legally,
Yeah.
These charges against him are serious. And the prosecutor, unlike what Joy Behar on The View said, is not a Republican. She is a Democrat who's married to another woman. So she's certainly not some right winger. And he's facing up to 5 years in prison. And why this took so long is because the FBI was involved and they had to do a report, and all these different agencies were involved, and they still decided to press charges here. And if he has to go before a jury of his peers, I don't foresee that it's going to go well, because there's a lot of blame to go around. And because he is a celebrity and such a megalomaniac, he did all of those interviews. Those can be used against him in a court of law, and probably will.
Yeah. By the way, you're right. He shouldn't have said anything. I mean, the silence is key in situations like that. But
I mean, he was charged. So there will be, unless he takes a sort of plea agreement, I don't foresee it getting dropped.
Wow.
For them to bring charges was such a monumental sort of thing to do, because what they could have very easily said, we found no fault here, and it would have gone away. So they went that extra mile and that extra step to say, we are charging him with involuntary manslaughter.
I guess Martha Stewart went to prison, quote unquote. So, things could happen.
No, I mean, listen, there will be a trial unless he takes a plea agreement.
Wow.
And he could waive a jury trial. He could waive a speedy trial and make it take longer, and make it just a bench trial with only the judge. But I mean, this is going to be something that does not go away.
Yeah, I think he's going to take a plea deal because I think one of his defenses is going to be that he's getting treated unfairly by the law because he's a celebrity, that there's an overcompensation.
Yeah, you're probably right.
That's not a defense.
If he wasn't a celebrity, maybe he wouldn't have gotten charged, but now he's going to be like, well, you're trying to hold me up as an example. That's unfair. I bet he'll take a plea deal and maybe serve a couple months, 60 days, 90 days, something like that in jail, just enough to humiliate him, but not enough to fundamentally disrupt his lifestyle. I mean, this is a guy, honestly, who survived some pretty...
By the way, Liz, to piggyback on your point, there's no such defense there is no mitigating circumstance, meaning the lessening the impact of your crime to say you're a celebrity. That is by no means a defense. And I do agree with you that he will have to take a plea if he wants maybe to do house arrest or something like that, like home confinement, but or community service, because he is facing 5 years right now. But if this prosecutor wants to make a name for herself, she might seek to hold his feet to the fire just to sort of advance her own aspirations or career, if she will. So I don't know, that this could play out several ways, but I think people will be watching, and it's going to certainly be interesting.
What a time to be alive right now. There's so much. There's so interesting. What do you think, Erin?
I'm totally inclined to agree. I have very little add because she said it so eloquently. I think a Michelle Obama and Newsom ticket and good old Joe will be up there hugging them both, reading the teleprompter, making gaffes, sniffing someone, tripping off the stage. What is it? End of quotes. Repeat the line. So, something
exit
like
off
that.
The stage. Yeah, no, I know. It's I don't think he's going to run. I mean, I don't see how anybody, apparently less than half of the people who voted for him in 2020 even want him to run again, according to a recent poll. And then, you look to kind of places out there like the Breakfast Club, for example, and Charlemagne the God, who was pretty hard the other day on old Joe and talked about how he saw him talking to a ghost. They had a whole back and forth there about Joe Biden and whether or not there should be some requirement to, get a cognitive test, some sort of a physical, Obama and Gavin Newsom, which I totally agree. I think that's probably a hot ticket. Obama, Newsom, Obama, some variation of that. Eric Adams, there's a lot of speculation. The mayor of New York City, where things are just in shambles. And when you didn't think they could get any worse than Bill de Blasio, bring in Eric Adams and he'll show you real quick that things could get worse. He apparently, people are speculating he might run. I don't know. That one I can't see. I mean, we can't even keep it together in New York. I don't think that's possible.
But look at California, and Democrat politics is the only profession where you continue to fail your way to the top. If you look at Joe Biden's 40-some year, air quotes, illustrious career, he has been wrong on every foreign policy decision, and these people yet continue to get more stature and more committee assignments and on and on and on and up the chain of commands. In any other profession or in the corporate world, you would have been fired and relegated to being unemployed. But no. When you're a Democrat in politics, you fail your way to the top. Adams isn't doing anything to advance New York. California is literally burning. Their infrastructure is failing. They have a huge deficit. I mean, these people are wholly unqualified, but it just doesn't seem to matter.
Right. I think we got to play the same game. I think Republicans oftentimes we're above all of this. We're not going to do any of that stuff. Forget it. If they are ballot harvesting and it's legal, you better believe we should be out there doing the same thing. We would be stupid not to do it. If we can't get, things changed back so that we have one day of voting and that everybody feels like the votes that they cast are secure, then we got to play the same game. Otherwise, it's pointless. I don't know what we're doing. I wonder, too, about all the people who were so upset with wherever it was they lived, New York, New Jersey, I mean, you name it, and they all moved to the red states. I think it made the red states redder. I think it made the blue states bluer. I don't know. I really wonder if Republicans, and look, it's up to the folks at the RNC. We got to get everybody on board for this, because that's the only way I think we're going to win in 2024. And obviously, I certainly hope that the nominee and the one who wins to become the 47th president of the United States is Donald Trump, because, man, we don't have any time to waste. We got to get going. We need somebody who's been there, who's done it. But, if we don't get this stuff straightened out, then it's going to be a tough road for anyone.
Right. I feel like he'll be so savage this time around. I'm praying that happens.
Well, we'll talk about that more maybe on the next episode of the review. Ladies, this has been lovely. I had like 50 other things I wanted to talk about, but I feel like we really got down and dirty on it all. And I'll tell you one thing, if masks come back, I dare them to try and get people to wear masks on planes again. I think there will be a lot of viral videos coming out of that situation, and I may or may not be involved in one of them.
Woohoo!
Yeah, yet to be seen. Liz Wheeler and Erin Elmore, thank you for being with us on today's episode of The Right View. To everybody at home, as always, thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next time for more.